here's your stimmies, just shut up and consume. Because we want you to consume while we're grifting and thefting everything away from you until the moment we're just going to outright take it. And so little now are as conscious as the people were then of this apparatus. There was warnings and there were papers, periodicals, John Jacob Astor. There were so many people that were against what occurred. But now we're here and we're kind of on the opposite spectrum, but for the same reasons.
So let's talk about Executive Order 6102. It's a very important chapter in this story. What is that? What happened? And what were the consequences of Executive Order 6102?
It's important to relitigate this because people are somehow mind-effed to believe that the government can do no harm. Mm-hmm. This is a very precise and specific example of the government inflicting maximum harm. And then remember, this is also timed with the rollout of the income tax. So first, 6102 is going to give us the authority to confiscate your gold holdings at a price we determine, $20.67, and then create the penalties if you do not comply. And
imprisonment, giant fines.
Yeah. Exactly. That I think was $15,000, which in those days is like 15 million. So the point of highlighting and relitigating this is to understand that it took the Federal Reserve System to be put in place to then allow really dark and nefarious things for American constituents that were hired by other Americans to do their will and bidding.
Yeah, legally. It's crazy.
And it's deeply, deeply sad. That occurred. And it's part and parcel of the agenda to debilitate you spiritually and then financially to prep you for war, because they knew that was coming. That was part of the agenda. And we see this in the modern realm. It sometimes is disguised as eminent domain. It sometimes is disguised as foreclosure or short sale. And all of these apparatuses that exist around the central banking, tentacles, because that picture always comes to mind is the octopus over the money truck. You know? It literally debases morality. Imagine
you're paying people to steal from people. You're paying people to steal from people.
Yeah.
Like, are you surprised that you get bad outcomes? Like,
one good example is, we've sent $370 billion to Ukraine, yet we still have homeless people. Yeah. And people, there's been enough rabble rousing around, hey, no foreign wars, no foreign lobbies. Why are we, financing all this stuff? They're not even listening to their constituents who are paying them to do their will, right? So it's this egregious dereliction of duty. And I think 6102 needs to be reviewed by those who are concerned about the future and need to be cognizant about the past.
And what was this actual numbers on this? Like, what was the actual gold confiscated?
770 million worth in dollars in those days.
So in 1933, $770 million of gold was seized. And that's valued at $20?
$20.67.
And gold today is 4,000 and something an ounce?
Well, so do your inflation adjusted on the dollar amount and then
I was going to say, you could get the ounces of gold seized, right? The 770 million divided by $20 an ounce to get your ounces, and then multiply that by today's price. And I don't know what that number would be, but the multiple, so whatever the
200.
Factor between 20 and 4,000 something is, well, that's going to be many trillions, I would assume.
It's an unfathomable number that your own government that you're paying to steal from you.
You paid your government to steal your gold from you. What a dark chapter.
Well, and that kind of predated but set up the great taking apparatus. What was that? That's the dematerialization of securities beginning in 1964, culminating with safe harbor provisions in 2010. That was the theft of property rights to securities. And I think we have to go to the genesis point where there was that asset forfeiture and confiscation. Like, inflating away the purchasing power of currency is just one vector of the central banking effect. And I think maybe just as important as that is this legislative allowance that occurs where, we can basically finance both sides or all sides to then get the outcome we want. What's the outcome? The outcome is all securities held in street name. You don't own them.
That's right.
They're no longer bearer instruments.
DTCC, right?
Correct.
Yeah. 160-ish billion is the 770 million. And that seems about right. I mean, that's a very large number, but to be in the trillions would be too large, I think. That's like, I think all the millionaire, billionaire wealth in the U.S. is like only a few trillion, right?
Yes.
4 or 5 trillion. Yeah, like not much. So if they seized a trillion, it's like, well, shit, that's like, I mean, that would be crazy.
And we have an asset base in this country of north of 200 trillion. There's 232 trillion of just U.S.-based credit derivatives.
Well, a lot of that's paper.
Yeah, I mean, but they're liabilities.
right, the
and there's-
notionals go super high.
It has negative convexity,
Yeah.
for sure, and that's why debt's such a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Anywho, back to the gold confiscation that sets up the property rights confiscation.
Yeah.
And so we're just walking forward from event to event.
Yeah.
What these components of their agenda of just total dominion over any population that lives under this system.
And it's all flavors of the same stuff, right? Stealing your stuff, violation of property. Like it's the same thing, different wrapper.
All of those acts, 33, 34, and 40, were basically a usurping of the entire financial system of the United States and a consolidation.
So where does the banking holiday come into this?
The banking holiday was a component of, all right, we confiscate your gold. Now we're going to dictate which banks get to play and whose deposits are actually still deposits. And they basically did a 4-day holiday, and 9,000 banks did not reopen by mandate. Whether they were solvent or not, it didn't even matter.
And so the people's gold held in those banks was
Gone.
ceased.
Yeah. And their cash deposits gone.
Crazy.
Again, it's not too far-fetched to go, well, if that was you or I, you'd be so angry, you'd be willing to go get a gun and run around in Eastern or Western Europe and just shoot everybody, right? So I want to keep drawing that parallel towards a setup for the psychology for war. Because when World War I happened in the 90s, I think it was 93 to be exact, percent of U.S. citizens polled did not want to go to war. And then again in World War II, it's super high. We don't want to go to war. We like our steak, our trucks, our homes, our suburbs, our communities, etc.
Yeah.
Americans were escaping that largely because you were only a few generations removed from the Revolutionary War to begin with, which was a fourth turning as well. And now we're here and we're kind of on the opposite spectrum, but for the same reasons. Here's your stimmies. Just shut up and consume because we want you to consume while we're grifting and thefting everything away from you until the moment we're just going to outright take it. And so little now are as conscious as the people were then of this apparatus. There was warnings and there were papers, periodicals, John Jacob Astor. There were so many people that were against what occurred. And then even Calvin Coolidge himself and Woodrow Wilson, later they reflected on all of this stuff. Whoops, we shouldn't have ever thought that this was going to be good. JFK, and then whether genuinely or not, now President Trump, where he's pointing the finger at the Fed. How do you get to decide what interest rates are? And you have to understand they are enacting their agenda agnostic to what you think is necessary.
Right.
And so if the signal here is if they drop rates and do QE again, they're not ready to just outright confiscate everything yet. They're going to grift for longer.